So you've probably seen some articles or maybe heard of some studies that say something to the effect that exercise actually doesn't matter to lose weight. While there is a kernel of truth to that, what I'm here to explain to you today is why diet matters more and why consistency matters most. I'm going to draw an analogy that hopefully everyone understands to illustrate what I mean in the title of this video. If you are a car, then nutrition is like, number one, your fuel, obviously, but also, you could say micronutrients are like all the fluids, like your wiper fluid and your engine oil and like all this kind of stuff, right? And as a vehicle, as an automobile, you are defined by certain operational parameters, like you have X amount of foot-pounds of torque and you go 0 to 60 and X amount of, so on and so forth. And you could compare these to your health markers, your VO2 max, even performance markers in the gym, like you can run this fast, you can lift this much, so on and so forth. So with this analogy, let's say you have a crappy diet, right? So you only eat fast food, minimal micronutrients. The calories, the fuel is still there, but the engine might not run as well because your oil is low, or your windshield wipers don't work because you don't have any fluid, but you can still drive the car. If you put too little fuel in the car, you can only drive so far before you have to refuel. And if your tank is full and you try to put extra fluid in there, it just spills out all over the vehicle. Both of these analogies hold true in physiology as well. This is what leads to, for instance, pre-diabetes. So with this analogy, what do you do day to day with your vehicle? You fuel your vehicle, you drive it around. When the fuel starts getting a little bit low, then you put more fuel in. In a vehicle, this might take one, a few, or several trips, whereas in physiology, it's usually a day-to-day or several hour to several hour process. So what does this have to do with why exercise doesn't matter as much as diet and why consistency matters more? Because, like your vehicle, the amount that you drive it only marginally affects the rate of fuel consumption. Like, you might get a little bit more highway than you do stop and go, but generally speaking, the fuel consumption stays about the same. Likewise, the amount of calories that we expend when we exercise is minimal compared to all the other things that we use calories to do. The biggest cost of which is that of just keeping the lights on. Just turning on and idling the engine uses the most amount of fuel. And then going with the analogy of idling the engine, that non-exercise activity, all the fidgeting and the tapping and the moving your hands around and things like that, that also uses a meaningful amount of energy. And then there's other things like the thermic effect of food, which in this analogy would be the energy cost of igniting the fuel. But the actual driving of the vehicle doesn't use very much more fuel than it takes to just idle. So if we're not burning that much more fuel driving the car and all we're doing is putting wear and tear on the parts, why drive the car at all? Well, that's the beauty of this analogy. You drive the car so you can get somewhere. And if you've been following along so far, this is where the analogy deviates and you're required to suspend your disbelief momentarily because your body is like a car that, if you drive it a certain way, it can become a different kind of vehicle. So imagine you're like a Toyota Camry or a Honda Civic, just like a regular 2 or 4-door sedan. Regular specs, nothing crazy, but let's say you hook up a trailer hitch to that Camry. And first you can only drag, like a 1,000-pound generator. And that's like maxing out your Camry specs. But then, instead of breaking it, after a while, now your Camry can drag like a 2,000-pound generator. And then next thing you know, after a couple months, your Camry's not a Camry anymore, it's a Tacoma. And then after another year, your Tacoma turns into a Tundra. Now it's a full-size truck. Or conversely, let's say you start off as like a Ford Focus and you're constantly driving your Ford Focus at like 90 down the highway and then 130. And then next thing you know, you're not driving a Ford Focus, you're driving a Mustang. What exercise is useful for, folks, is not burning calories, it's the training effect to change the actual vehicle to a vehicle that then, inherent in its specs, burns more calories and can just do cooler stuff. The reason why these articles and studies say that diet matters more, the adaptation that takes place to change you from that Toyota Camry to the Toyota Tundra, from the Ford Focus to the Ford Mustang, that takes a lot longer than the day-to-day changes that occur from you just restricting calories in whatever way is least restrictive to you. And that, folks, is why consistency matters most, because your body has all these homeostatic regulatory mechanisms. Your blood pressure is one, your blood pH is another, your body temperature is another, and there's a meaningful amount of data to suggest that your body weight and body composition is also another. Exercise is the stimulus to change that, but your body is going to fight it every inch of the way, and so you're not going to change from that Camry to the Tundra unless you keep chipping away at it over a meaningful period of time consistently. So all that to say, in the short term, absolutely, diet matters more. Especially if all you're doing are things like walking or like Zumba or something where you're just moving around burning calories. But if you're consistently training for a specific effect over a meaningful period of time, that will change you into a vehicle with different specs that can then burn more calories even when you're idling. If you've watched any of my content or know me as a person, you know that I'm a huge advocate for exercise. And while exercise is great for your overall health, since most people are very inconsistent with their exercise and don't necessarily train for a purpose, as a general statement, diet matters more. Regardless, in either case, with diet and especially with exercise, consistency matters most. So like, subscribe, share the video, leave a comment down below, and stay in the fight. Thanks for watching.